today I'm going to talk about why I'm switching back to D&D 4th edition. And I'll try and make this quick because the last thing the internet needs is another dude out here talking about D&D editions. And also, you don't know me. I have 12 subscribers, so chances are you don't know who I am. So I guess take everything with a grain of salt, but my opinion is informed by, I'm just one of these like Gen X guys who've been playing every edition since the early 80s. I did not play the original OD&D back in the day. It was invented the year I was born, so I didn't jump on that bandwagon early enough, I guess. But I have played it. I played every edition at this point. And I think that now is a good time to evaluate Dungeons and Dragons and why we play. Mostly because, I don't know, up until now, every new edition I've just kind of followed along. When 2nd edition came out and when I was in high school, it was like, 2nd edition AD&D, I should say, we all jumped on it, even though we'd been playing Beck-Me before this. Now, I was in grad school when 3rd came out. Kind of missed that a little bit because I was kind of busy. But I did go to Gen Con. I did pay attention. So I did end up playing a lot of, especially 3.5 and then even more Pathfinder. So I'm really familiar with those rules as well. Played 4th edition for the brief time it was out, and then jumped to 5th edition 2014. So it's been a decade now. But now they've got this whole rigmarole going where they want to monetize us even more. They want to turn it into a subscription, just like every other service in the world. And they're going to nickel and dime you and keep you paying in perpetuity, because that's just how the world works now. And I don't want to do it. There's just too many other great games out there. I mean, Shadow Dark just swept the Ennies. There's Dungeon Crawl Classics and all the BX clones. And I mean, there's just a million options. And that's just talking fantasy role-playing games. There's just a million things to do. There's video games. There's no shortage of competition for our eyeballs and our attention. So the fact that Wizards of the Coast thinks that we're obligated to follow them into the next edition is absurd. That may have been true even 10 years ago. It's not anymore. So I'm just going to lay out why I'm switching back to 4th edition. I've thought about this long and hard, and as I've said, I've played all the editions, and I went back when I started thinking about this, kind of after the OGL scandal in early 2023, evaluating like, all right, what do I want to do here? Do I want to just switch to, Dungeon Crawl Classics? I think that looks like a brilliant game. I'd like to switch to it, but no one wants to play that. No one ever wants to play anything besides 5th edition D&D. So I guess that just leaves me. I can pick whatever I want. So considering there's an abundance of games, board games, war games, tabletop games, anything. I mean, I play a lot of Gaslands. I play a lot of other things as well, but I just want to keep a D&D game going, and I want it to be actual D&D. I don't want it to be one of these clones of, basic or clones of the white box. They're cool. I mean, I've read them, but earlier this year, I went back and I started an AD&D 1st edition campaign. This was my first introduction when I was a kid, but I really never got into it. Too complex for children. I mean, it's really for like nerdy adult men. Okay, sorry, that was sexist, but like it was just nerdy adult men back in the day who were just like into numbers and tables, and so am I. Like, it's who I am. I enjoy it, but no one else wants to play it. AD&D is really good for solo play, but it's got problems. I mean, Gary Gygax was a genius, but he was also a coked out weirdo sometimes, and the rules and the writing are next to incomprehensible. I mean, granted, you pick up any of those AD&D books, 1st edition, I should say, and you can just discover new things. You could have been reading that book for 40 years and still discover something new because it's so dense And it's so compacted with little tidbits here and there that you just find like a little mini percentile chart in the middle of a paragraph. That's kind of brilliant, but at the same time, just a little absurd in 2024. Now, second edition has a lot of appeal to me because it's very nostalgic for me. It came out when I was in high school. We all switched to it. I had a good time with it, but didn't get a chance to play it much. And in fact, we found we liked Beck Me more than second edition AD&D. I don't know why. AD&D was so cool, but just Beck Me just hit that sweet spot. So we played that. And then during the 90s, I mean, I kind of just switched to Palladium games, Heroes Unlimited, that sort of thing. And I kind of got out of the D&D phase. But then came back in like early 2000s with 3.5, got into a few games there. Did the full 4E. Like I said, I'm just kind of repeating myself here. But so that's my personal history, just to give you my bona fides here that I'm like you. I played a lot of this stuff. I do kind of know what I'm talking about, just like you. So we're having this conversation. Expert to expert. Now, I've told you why I don't want to follow WotC into 5.5 and why the older editions just aren't working for me. So I think 4th edition is really appealing. Now, let me just say, get this out of the way. One of the reasons it's really appealing is because I'm kind of a natural contrarian by nature. And so the fact that everyone hates it is appealing for some reason. There's nothing wrong with it. I played it. It's fun. You can tell it's a great game. You can get stories out of it. The role-playing is fine. The role-playing is whatever you make of it in any edition. So anyone telling you that you can't role-play in 4th edition just isn't a very creative person, or they're doing it wrong. So there's that. But 4th edition in particular has some unique qualities that the other editions don't. And I think it's ideal for the kind of setup that I have in mind here. So if I'm going to just pick an edition and nobody's going to play with me unless it's 5th edition anyway, then I'm going to play with a VTT online, perhaps with random people on the internet. So I want an edition that works really well with these tools. Now, AD&D, I mean, sure. I keep coming back to AD&D because it's like the close runner-up to 4th edition here. Not in spirit. It's kind of the OG best one when you think about it. But, you know, it's like, yeah, you can play it around the campfire and you can do all these amazing things. And it's like, you know, super dangerous. And you have to create all these like wacky, crazy characters. And it's way different. But none of the editions really fit with these tools that I'm talking about. Number one, 4th edition has a tactical focus, more so than any other edition. I mean, that shouldn't even be controversial. It's got a design focus on tactical combat. It makes the gameplay cohesive and really well balanced for this reason. So if I'm going to play on a VTT with weirdos from the internet, I want something that's going to be fair and balanced and not have a bunch of like just insane characters show up. Now, it's quite possible no one will want to play this with me, and I'm going to be playing solo anyway. So again, I can set up an encounter in 4th edition and play through it like it's a chess game, much better than any other edition. It also has unified mechanics that no other edition has. Now, okay, AD&D is just a unique act of genius that will never be replicated. But by modern standards, the writing is just incoherent. I mean, yes, I've read it. You can understand it. You can follow it. It's definitely playable. Like millions of people have played that game, that edition. And it's wonderful, but it's not unified. There's a subsystem for every individual distinct thing. So it's consistent. So 4E is consistent. It's unified across the classes, the monsters. It simplifies gameplay in that way. And also the idea of having roles is amazing. So the defender and, all the four roles, the leader, etc. I just think work really well in a modern, contemporary setup. Now, again, I just want to emphasize, like, if your idea is like getting together in person with your friends and one person's the DM and they craft this story and they try and like walk you through their little story, that's great. You can do that with 4E as well. However, if you want to play it that way, you can. If you want to play it more like a war game with skirmish tactical battles, it's the best one for that. The design is also modular and self-contained in a way that the other editions aren't. It only was published for, 2008 to maybe 2012, 13, somewhere around in there. There's like 5 good years of 4th edition, and then they just stopped supporting it. Now, that could be a bad thing, but in my mind, it's this perfect gem, this self-contained gem, where nothing's really compatible with 4E, and you can't really pull things out of 4E. It's its own thing, and it's got such a crisp beginning and ending that it just makes it feel knowable and real. I like that. The rules are measurable and discrete for that reason. So they're complete. It's a complete rule set. And once you've gone through all the errata and you've fixed everything, you've got this stable, never-changing rule set that you can count on. Even AD&D, it's just too crazy to consider it discrete and measurable. Like AD&D is the opposite of measurable. It's this spiraling Pandora's box of wonderful genius, as I mentioned, but it's too sprawling. They all are, except for 4E. For example, with 4E, I know confidently that there are exactly 9,409 powers. So that's a stable and predictable framework in order to play my game. I love that. I want that. I want to go back to that. So 5, especially 5.5, it's going to be this ever-evolving, never-finished subscription service where you'll just never reach the finality of it. And like I said, even something that's older, like take 3 and 3.5, there's just so much third-party content. You just can't, there's a lot of third-party content for 4E as well, but not as much. One, due to the licensing, but two, it was a short-lived little burst of gaming that there just wasn't a ton out for, except for the, dozens of books that Wizards of the Coast published. I just like that. That's just a finished library. Just something really satisfying and whole about that. So the game itself, I think, is the most balanced and consistent. There's just, it was designed as a complete system and not just this mishmash of rules all slammed together, which for something like AD&D creates amazing experiences. But it's kind of requires like a group of friends. And I have a group of friends. We game and it's fun and we play 5. And I've played with a lot of different groups. But this new paradigm, this modality that I'm talking about here of setting up individual missions and inviting people into, it just lends itself much better to the balanced encounters and consistency across the entire, all 3 tiers of play, from heroic to epic. It's just the smooth progression. So the other thing I want to talk about, though, with 4th edition is the fact that there is a lot of role playing through mechanics. Now, I will grant you the fact that there's not a lot of downtime rules and systems in fourth edition, but what it lacks in crazy tables that you get to roll on, which are fun, and that's what AD&D is known for the most. All these wonderful tables where you roll dice and you get these really rare outcomes that add so much flavor to your game. I think we're not going to have that ever again. That was a wargaming club that had a bunch of home rules that all got mashed together by Gary. We're just not going to see that again. But in fourth edition, we have skill challenges. A lot of people have talked about this, but skill challenges. Now, a lot of people hate skills in RPGs at all. I don't. I think they're fine. I think skill challenges are a way to have really engaging ways to interact with the story mechanically through your character. So you're doing more than just swing a sword, or worse yet, just waiting for your time to come up around the table so the spotlight goes on you. There's a lot of skills to add to it other than combat. And I know that sounds crazy because everyone thinks 4E is only focused on combat. But I can tell you this, like when I played 4th edition for 4 or 5 years, however long it was out, it was as good as any quote unquote storytelling that has ever happened in D&D. Now, was it as gonzo as my AD&D campaign? No. Was it as engaging as when I was in junior high playing Beck Me with my friends? No. But as good as 5th edition, every bit as good as 5th edition. And it's got a lot of the character customization juiciness that 3.5 had as well. So I personally think it's easy to jump in. Like I can teach somebody to play 4th edition pretty easily. Like there's some, you do your standard action, you got a move and a minor, and you can kind of swap those around a little bit. And then it's like on your character sheet there, you've got your at-will powers and your encounter powers and your daily, and you get to use those on a timer. Now, some people hate that. And some people hate the fact that the wizards and the fighters both have powers that act like spells. And again, this is a game. And as far as a game goes, it's very cohesive. And then one final thing I just want to say is, and I mentioned this before, but 4th edition got a lot of flack for being too video gamey or like an MMO or something. Well, why not use that? Why not use that to its advantage and actually like build cool encounters on virtual tabletops? So that's it. I'm switching back to 4E. Yeah, 5.5 is just not doing it for me. I don't like the business model. I also, with 5.5, I also don't like it's just a very bland HR corporate enterprise. It's just very Disney like at this point. There's no flavor. There's no individual artistic vision imbued with it. Now, 4E you can make the same thing, but it was opinionated. It took a bold stance, and maybe you hate it for it, but it's the most unique of all the editions. It's the most cohesive of all the editions. It's like a Lego set that everything snaps together and you know that it's going to be stable and work. So that's what 4E is good for. That's why I'm switching back.